Thank you.
You are live.
Why am I not seeing attendees? Are there no attendees today?
There's no attendees right now.
Okay. All right, I'm going to open up the meeting of the Special Events Committee today, and consistent with the mayor's orders, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and banning certain gatherings such that a in-person meeting of the city council, special events is
No,
not possible.
I changed city council of the SEAC meeting.
Yeah, mine says city council on it, sorry. The
Sorry.
SEAC
I
committee
changed
not
it for you.
This meeting will be conducted by remote participation. The public may not physically attend this meeting, but every effort will be made to allow the public to view and listen to the meeting in real time and participate when necessary. All right, so with us today, Joanne Sanos, City Clerk, Bill Sanborn, Building Commissioner. We're both co-chairs. We have Tom Sayers from the Fire Department. He's the new fire inspector. Chris Garanzas from the Mayor's Office. We have Brian Milne. I'm sorry, Brian. I'll get it one of these days. Mark Shanks from the Board of Health. Eric Smith, Fire Chief. Mayor Taken. Lieutenant Dave Quinn from the Police. Jill Cahill from Community Development. Chad Johnson from Harbor Master. And Mark Cole from DPW. All right. First order of business today will be to approve the minutes of April 1st, the meeting 2021. So everybody reviewed the minutes, and can we get a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes of April 1st, 2021.
Second,
Second.
Brian seconds them. Okay, any corrections or edits for the minutes? Any other comments on the minutes? Then Joanne, can you please take a roll call vote?
Okay, so whoever was not at the meeting will not be able to vote on the minutes. I will just call the whoever was present at the last meeting to approve. Bill Sanborn,
Yes.
Mark Cole,
Yes.
Brian Mewman,
Yes.
Jill Cahill,
Yes.
Chad Johnson.
Yes.
Just a note, sorry, Joanne.
Yeah.
When we vote, we do have to be visible on the computer. You do have to show your face, please.
Okay. All right, and Phil Harvey is not on, correct? I don't see him. Do you see him, Bill?
No, I do not.
Okay. And Joanne Sinos, yes. 6. So the motion passes, 6 in favor, 0 opposed, and we have 1, 2, 3 abstaining.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take an item out of order on the agenda today. Our number 3 item is to approve the Cape Ann Farmers Market's final plan. I'm going to move that to the next item for business, if that's okay with everybody. So Courtney, you want to explain to us why you're here today, please?
Good afternoon. Thanks so much for having me back. As we went along planning our layout for Harbor Loop this season, what became clear to us is that it made the most sense for us to be able to get the most amount of distance between vendors and have as much social distancing as possible to set up tents on either side of the street instead of just one side. So that's the only change that we're coming back.
So the vendors will be on both sides of the street.
Yes, the vendor, instead of one side of the street, they'll be on both sides of the streets and staggered.
Okay, and staggered, okay.
Yes.
All right. I don't have a problem with that. That's similar to how it always was run. Any events were run down there on both sides of the street, right? Lieutenant Quinn, you got any issues with that? Traffic, involvement traffic or anything?
No, that should not be an issue. We're fine with that.
Chief Smith?
No, that's fine, so long as the roadway, as with all roadways, we still have access down there. I believe it's getting barricades at both ends of Harbor Loop that we can move out of the way, but we can't have stuff in the roadway that would obstruct fire apparatus to get down there if need be.
Okay, yeah. Joanne, just want to note that Phil Harvey's now has joined us. Yeah, so we want to make sure that at all times vehicles can drive down the middle of the road. So that has to stay clear at all times. And also the entrance to Harbor Master and to the Coast Guard station need to be available and readily accessible at all times too in case of an emergency. Do we have any other concerns or comments with this?
I just want to comment that the certificate of liability was turned into the city clerk's office today, so they're all set on that.
All right.
In
All right.
court, you know about the transient vendors. I sent you that email about non-food vendors. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. You've been so helpful. Yep, I'm compiling all of that information and you should get it pretty soon.
Okay. Thank you.
And then Brian, I'll be letting you know the list of vendors that need to get permits through you as well.
Perfect. Some of them have already started to roll in, so we're getting there.
Great.
Thank you.
If I could, I guess it would be helpful if I could figure out exactly who I need to contact. We haven't had to close down a street for the farmers market in many, many years. So I know Mark has been great about getting back to me about closing down, but if I get to the site to set up and there are cars in the site or anything like that, it would be helpful if I kind of know the protocol of what I need to do, who I need to contact. Does that make sense?
Yep, I'm not sure how that works. Mark, can you help her out with that, how we deal with that, or Lieutenant Quinn?
Sure. I mean, if cars need to be moved, if it's been properly posted and they need to be moved, she can just contact the watch commander at the police station and they'll send an officer over to assist with that.
So do we normally post that the day before that there'll be no parking down there after a certain time during the day, or what's the protocol?
Yeah, that would be required. I mean, you can't just expect people to know that. So, if you get down there, the evening before and post it 24 hours in advance, certainly would make it very helpful.
And that signage that they hang on the meters, is that available at the police department to borrow, or is that something you need to
Yeah, I
purchase?
believe Deputy Chief Fitzgerald would be able to assist with that. We do have the temporary signs.
Okay.
So maybe the evening before, reach out to Deputy Chief Fitzgerald and he can coordinate that.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
And you have been to city council for that process, right? You've been through that process with them, right? Correct? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, in front of P&D.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
I just want to comment that I spoke to the chair of P&D and she felt that she didn't have to come back to the committee because they just approve a road closure. So the setup, as long as it's acceptable with the public safety, she didn't feel that she had to come back to P&D to get approval again.
All right. I don't think there's anything here we need to actually vote on, do we?
The final plan.
Want to vote on the final plan? All right.
Yeah, because you voted on to have the event with the plan just being on one side. Now she's on two sides. So the plan did change from when she presented it last time and when we approved it.
And did we get a plan? Do we have?
The previous, yeah, I sent it in that shared drive.
Okay, all right, so we have a revised plan, okay.
Yes.
All right, Jill?
Well, the mayor's hands up, so I defer to the mayor first.
I didn't see the mayor, I'm
She used
sorry.
the button, but I know Bill doesn't see it. You gotta go like this.
Mayor, you're muted.
Mayor, you're muted.
Mayor?
Okay, yeah, muted. For the first time. There's always one first time. It's not gonna happen again. No, the fact is that, welcome, and I'm looking forward to be down Harbor Loop. It's gonna be great. And when are you going to start this?
The first day is June 3rd, Thursday,
Or
June
maybe
3rd.
we can put something to remind people that, Harbor Loop's gonna be closed. You know how people like to go to the bank and they like to do the loop. So we'll let the Maritime give them a little understanding that, people, where you're gonna go to what end. So what end of Harbor Loop to the other, we'll do like a little maybe PR thing so people will understand that it's gonna be closed actually for vehicles, because people are gonna be walking in the streets like we used to. So you have to have like 2 horses, and I'm sure, or whatever they call it, sea horses, wooden horses, whatever the police might have, or whatever, or the DPW, I have no idea what they're called. And so we'll let people know that they're not gonna drive through, but also to remind people that they're not gonna be able to drive through, and to work with the Maritime because they're open during the summer, to let them know that we'll work with them. So I'm
Yep.
looking forward to it. I can't wait.
Thank
And
you.
Mayor, I've been working with Courtney, and I'm bringing to your office a co-signed letter to the businesses on all the businesses on Harbor Loop, to let them
Okay.
know that this is an effort that we've done, that the city's working closely with them. So you'll see that shortly. And Courtney will do some more follow-up. I had a good meeting with the chamber, some possible parking opportunities. So
Great, thank you.
yeah, Mayor, the chamber, Maritime Gloucester, so far the people we've needed to work with down here have been great. So
Just take over Chad's spot. That's fine.
I'm actually here today because we're using the conference room for a planning thing.
Then take
and-
over her spot. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any further comments, concerns, questions? Then can we entertain a motion?
Motion to approve the Cape Ann Farmers Market's final plan with using both sides of the street on Harbor Loop, starting June 3rd.
Second?
Second.
Okay, further discussion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Chad Johnson,
Yes.
Mark Cole,
Yes.
Chief Smith,
Yes.
Tom Sayers,
Yes.
Lieutenant Quinn,
Yes.
Bill Sanborn,
Yes.
Brian Newman,
Yes.
Joe Cahill,
Yes.
and Phil Harvey,
Yes.
and myself. Okay, I say yes, the motion passes. Okay, all set, Courtney.
All right, thank you very
Thank you
much,
so
Courtney. Good
everyone.
luck.
You've all been so great. I really appreciate it.
Good luck.
Is that Phil, is that Tom behind you? I'm going like, wait a minute. I love it. I love it. Okay, sorry.
All right, next item is item number 2, reconfirmation of Special Events Advisory Committee vote April 1st, 2021 regarding the SEAC applications. I think we're gonna skip that unless somebody has some concerns, because that's basically been made mute for the governor's new orders. So with that, we'll go on to item number 4, which is the Special Events Advisory Committee's discussion on Governor Baker's reopening changes. So that was, we had a lot of changes made, I guess. So it's going to kind of make it an interesting summer. Chris, can you give us a quick overview of what those changes were?
I think that's what Max is here for.
Either
Either
or.
or.
I thought Max was going to fill us in with the details to it, and Chris was going to tell us overall. Max would fill the details.
It's an answer whatever questions you may have, or at least find out some answers if I can. Chris, you want to handle that? That's fine. I don't care. Either way.
I'm just reading right from the reopening page, so I'll just give you the top level.
I was going to do the same thing, so you're fine.
So great minds. Basically, effective April 30th, the face covering orders were relaxed for some of the outdoor settings, and there's other guidelines on the Massachusetts reopening website effective on May 10th. So that's upcoming. This is the big one that we were talking about, Jill and I, the last time. Phase 4, step 2. Large venues such as indoor and outdoor stadiums, arenas, ballparks, currently open as part of phase 4, step 1 at 12%, will be permitted to increase capacity to 25%. So again, 12% to 25% for the indoor outdoor stadiums. Will also for, let's see here, step 2, including amusement parks, theme parks, outdoor water parks, will operate at 50% capacity with safety plans to the Department of Public Health. Road races, now this one here is a particular interest. Road races and other large outdoor organized amateur or professional group athletic events, staggered starts after submitting safety plans to a local board of health or the DPH. And Max will pick on you in a minute to talk about that a little bit more. And let's see here. Youth and adult amateur sport tournaments will be allowed for moderate and high risk sports. Singing will also be permitted indoors with strict distancing requirements at performance venues, restaurants, etc. And then we get to May 29th, subject to public health and vaccination data. Gathering limits will increase from 200 people indoors to 250 people outdoors for event venues. And for the other ones that are more relevant to us, street festivals, parades, agricultural festivals at 50% of their previous capacity, and after submitting safety plans to the local board of health. Bars, beer gardens, breweries, wineries, distilleries will be subject to restaurant rules with seating service only, a 90-minute limit still, and no dance floors still. The restaurant guidance will be updated to eliminate the requirement that food be served with alcohol and to increase the maximum table size to 10. So again, restaurant guidance is a little bit more lax with regard to they don't need that requirement of the food, but they still have to have that 90-minute limit. And then August 1st, it seems like that's pretty much the full shapoopy, except for the fact the emergency orders will still be in place in terms of getting back to, full shapoopy equals we're back to semi-normal. The emergency orders will still be in place, though, in case, government has to step in if there's another spike and whatnot. So again, I think this has been shared to this board in some capacity. The easiest way to find this is going to mass.gov/reopening and looking at the guidance and the timelines there, and that's where I'm reading from right now. I think the most important thing, Jermaine, to hear with regard to welcoming a person like Max, because we have to use a local board of health to get the health plan reviews on things like these road races. So I want to make sure that that's known to this board too, is that we really have to make sure there's a plan submitted as part of the process. And I know, Bill, we use whatever the cloud permitting tool is to kind of organize things in advance. And apologies that I don't know this. I don't know if we have the mechanism to welcome an additional step in here to make sure the Board of Health is getting those plans. So, and with that, I'll yield back to the chair.
Yes, we do. We do have the ability to do that, and that's one of the items that was on my list today. One of the things we're looking at doing, hoping that the commission will follow, committee will approve, is to open up the Viewpoint program starting Monday. Right now, Joanne's office is getting inundated with calls because everybody wants to know what they can do and what they can't do, and it's just too much, and we have a mechanism to relieve that pressure from her office. So that's what we're looking to do. We're hoping to be able to turn Viewpoint on Monday and direct everybody there to put an application. As these applications come in, they'll be forwarded to each department. Each department will look at it pertaining to what they need to do and give it its guidance. And then one of the triggering points there is, do you feel it needs to come to a meeting? It's going to be important that we make sure we complete that task to know whether it needs to come to a meeting or it needs to be approved, can be approved right away. And what that means, if it's going to come to a meeting, that means the applicant's going to have to show up at the meeting and is going to have to explain their process and do the whole 9 yards like we have been doing. If we check it doesn't need to come to a meeting, then it will come at the next meeting. Nobody needs to be there from the applicant. We will just go over and make sure everybody's on the same page, there's no concerns, and approve it and go on to the next item. So we're hoping this will get people on. We can look at the events. If we have events that are not going to comply, then we'll deny them right there. We're right now, we've changed, I've asked Vicky to change the permit application so the applicant does not pay until their event has been approved. It's a temporary thing. Once we get through this crisis and we get back to normal, they'll be paying for the application fee. But in this case, somebody puts in something that we're not going to approve. We don't want to have to find a way how to go back and reimburse them. It's possible, but as you all know, if you try to get a refund to somebody from the city, it's not easy. So we decided to go this way. I also would like to add Max on to one of the approvers on the viewpoint system, and so that he can review each one. Each applicant who's submitting something should have a plan showing how they're going to comply with the COVID protocol. And, you know, Max will be there to make sure that that can be done. Questions on that part of it?
I guess it's just, my only thing is there was distinguishing, it was a weird qualifier that I think this board should know about around if it's between a few municipalities. And I think we do have a couple of road races that go between us and like Rockport. But
Yes.
I'm not sure what the triggering event is that it has to go to like the Massachusetts Public Health Board. I would hope that we could keep the control as local as possible for obvious reasons. And I think if I saw the guidance, the control plan templates do seem to provide a path to which it can, you know, make sure, basically all I'm trying to say is whatever the templates are, I'm hopeful that we can keep it as local as possible, because if we have to submit stuff to the state, it's going to take even longer. And I worry about that. So I'm hopeful that Max and the health, you know, department is.
Well,
is
I'll
well
let
equipped.
Max answer, but when I read it, my interpretation was if you're having the Boston Marathon, you're going to the state.
Right.
But if you have a road race that's going to start in Gloucester at Good Harbor Beach and run down to Rockport and back, it's just going to be between Gloucester and Rockport.
Okay.
Yeah,
And-
that's it. And unless you have a Foxborough or some event space like that, it's going to be local deciding it. They're just more concerned because believe me, the state doesn't want more work than they can do. So they're just going to stick with, you know, the Foxboroughs, the Fenway Park, that sort of thing. And they'll let us, you know, deal with the smaller local stuff. So something going on at Newell Stadium, we'll be dealing with that sort of thing.
Okay. So like on road races, Max, where we have to deal with different departments.
Yep.
I'm thinking that all we need to do is have them say yes to you, that yes, I've talked with Rockport and they're happy. I don't think we need to get into what's going on with Rockport and seeing how they're dealing with it.
Yeah, Rockport needs to be responsible for their own part of the process. We don't need to add more work to us.
Right. So we just need to know that they have submitted to Rockport and been approved by Rockport. And we don't
Yep.
need to know anything else.
And
right?
have some sort of proof. I mean, they should be able to upload some sort of document showing that Rockport's approved them for the
Okay.
event. Yeah.
All right. So I
The
know.
only-
I'm
The
sorry.
only caveat on that is, you know, is it the chicken or the egg dilemma? Because if Rockport says, no, if your race starts and ends in Gloucester, we want to see that Gloucester approved you before we do anything with it, because it's kind of a Gloucester event. And if we put the caveat in there that, no, we need to see that Rockport approved you before we'll approve you for an event, then these folks are stuck in a never-ending circle, right?
Well, I think that's why I just want to know that they've submitted to Rockport and they've met, for our side, they met their qualifications. They've contacted Rockport, talked to Rockport. How they deal the back and
Yeah,
forth is up to them. I mean, they got to make Max happy. I don't think we're going to have a requirement that they have
Yeah.
to make Rockport happy first.
Right. I would say that we shouldn't have a requirement for an approval from said neighboring community, but that we should require the upload, if you will, of their submission. If they send an email, if they send a letter, if they sent something notifying them or entering into their permitting process, something that shows that, yes, I did my due diligence and I told them about what's going on. They've got all the information and here's the proof that I took that step. And then we can at least check it off that, okay, they spoke to the neighbor. If the neighbor denies them and they can't run through their town legitimately, then I guess they're probably not going to hold their event anyway, right? So,
Right. Yeah, that's probably a good point, Chief. Mayor, I see you.
Okay, we have a Board of Health that's every day. Some of the, let's say Essex or I was gonna say Magnolia or Manchester, they don't have a full time. So if Rockport says, well, we don't have a full time, or the person says, well, can't we still do it because it's your Board of Health, or can they go to the state and our Board of Health? I mean, that's the whole thing. We have a full-time Monday through Friday Board of Health. No, I don't think Rockport does, do they? They don't have a director. They have a part-time.
Yeah, they have an agent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know
So-
Essex has a full-time agent too. I'm not sure about Manchester.
Right, so we should post that too, if they're gonna do something like that, that it's their responsibility to go crazy to go get that.
Exactly. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah,
It's
but it
not-
will be a trigger for me to contact Leslie over in Rockport to just double check that she's aware, so she expects it coming in or something, we can
Thank you.
just keep tied in. We'll just keep the lines open, that's all.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
And Mayor and Max, I'm looking at the revised submitting your safety plan on the website here, and they specifically address some of this with regard to road races, where they actually say, where there's an online form here, races that begin and end in different communities but travel through 3 or fewer communities, which is actually updated language, must submit a safety plan to each of the local board of health for each community on the race course. So the state actually does make it clear to put the burden on the applicants as it relates to special events, and there's updated. So that was something I had flagged because I didn't, unless I was wrong. Previously it said 2 or fewer, but that was also why I said I didn't know where the triggering event was. Is it 2? They seem to have adjusted that to 3 now. So this is again on the mass.gov submit a phase 4 safety plan, where there's a form to be filled out. And I'm not sure if this would go back to the local board as well, but this seems to be focused more on the bigger ones. So again, whichever mechanism that we want to use, the guidance from the state makes it pretty clear of how we're supposed to act.
Okay,
Chris, can you
thank
do me a favor and forward me that link? That'd be good
Absolutely.
to have.
Yep.
thank you, Chris, because I don't want to always on top of us all the time. Well, you know what, do the legwork, people.
Well, and some of it too has been, as we all know, keeping up with the pace of this, and to which the guidance and the guidelines have been updated on.
And
The
you all
website.
thought it was gonna be easy. We're opening up and there you go. I keep shutting the video instead of.
Okay. Further comments on that?
Well, I have a question.
Yes, Mark.
Who's going to be responsible at the event to make sure that the safety plan's being followed, that all the cleaning protocols are being followed?
So on the application, there is a spot for that. You have to list who the responsible person is and their phone number, so that we have their telephone number, a phone number they have with them, so we can communicate with them. So if something happens during the day, they have a person who has control who can get hold of. So it will be on the permit. Can I answer your question, Mark?
Are you asking Mark who in the city would be there?
We're going to trust somebody we don't know that they're going to enforce all the safety protocols at an event.
Just like we do now.
Yeah, it's the same process we do now, exactly.
Well, I mean, it's a little bit different. A road race 2 years ago versus a road race this year is a lot different as far as the start, all the protocols. I mean, it didn't matter if you had 500 people standing shoulder to shoulder at a start line, whereas this year you can't. And I mean, I'm just asking who's going to be responsible if they
So,
don't.
right, so I think I get it, is they're gonna submit a plan for this road race. They'll submit a plan to Max through the viewpoint. Max will review that plan. That plan's gonna say how they're gonna separate people, how many runners will start at different times so they're separated. And there is a protocol the state has put out for some of these things. And that's gonna be Max's responsibility to know that they have a plan that complies, at least, the best we can. And then it's up to them to show that they are enforcing it. It's the same as we've been through the whole COVID issue. Is it's always left up to the individual business owners to assure that they are compliant with it.
Yeah,
Is that
and,
right?
and to that point, looking at the website again, the revisions here, and Mark, I think to kind of underline that, as opposed to talking about enforcement, they talk about reporting violations against a health form. So it seems like, as opposed to finding a person to enforce, it's more like, how do you report a gotcha if you think it's something really bad? So
Right. And that's usually what's happened with us in the past. The people are very self-policing, we've discovered. And so they have no problems whatsoever contacting us. So I don't think it's going to be that much of an issue.
but it's a good question to ask, Mark, because we don't want the
Oh, yeah.
liability.
No, don't get me wrong. So, and I think the other thing is, Mark, for the larger events, I mean, I think it would behoove us to do a swing by just to make sure that they've got everything in line and that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, like what Brian has to do with larger events for the food vendors. We're going to have to do the same thing for the safety protocols.
Probably a good idea, Max.
Yep.
As we all go out for a lot of these events to make sure they're set up when there's vendors and there's
Mhm.
different issues going on. So it might be good to add that on to one of our inspections for us to zip by and assure that they are running them right. They are doing it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say this is going to be kind of same as what we do now with even off-time events, if you will, things that are happening that are not during our normal business schedules for inspectors and those that are stuck coming in on the weekend, like Bill's folks and fire inspectors on my side of it. When we have events, the Art in the Park and so forth, where we're out doing a look at what are they doing with their grills, what are they doing with their tents, and make that quick check. And on top of that, if it is an event that even in a rolling closure for the street, you've got law enforcement that's typically there kind of, handling the front end and the back end of that train, if you will. And if it's a really large event, then they've got EMS support, and we're putting, incident commanders in place in those situations. So they'll all know, both on the police and fire side, that, hey, there's all these safety protocols, and it usually sticks out if people aren't following. If they're not doing distancing, they're not doing masks, whatever the rules du jour, I can assure you one of my folks will probably be calling the person that's running it, that's on their event list, that says, this is your contact if there's a problem. And they're the one to sign off on folks getting paid on these, private details. So they know who that person is. And if that person isn't toeing the line, we're usually not too shy about letting folks know that, hey, you're breaking the rules and everybody's watching. So stop, it's pretty straightforward.
All right. So do we need to take a vote to turn this on for, I'm sorry, Jill has a question.
I'm hoping we can specifically talk about events on public property, and in particular Stage 4 Park. I know things keep changing, right? So the last time we all met, we were not having events on public property, and specifically not in Stage 4 Park. With these changes, I think both Joanne and I have heard a lot. So I have heard, I have heard from folks as big as Riverfest to say, are we crazy? Are you even considering this? Would you even? And I've heard local, I know, Mayor, I said, Mayor's got a pretty, and I don't blame you. I mean, who wants to be the first one? So, and as local as Countdown to Kindergarten at Stage 4 Park. So I think we really need to have a discussion about the use of public property for events, and and as private as a wedding at Stage 4 Park. So
All right, first we can do that, but first I want to get the sign up with the program, make sure we're all set, and we're gonna turn the program on Monday. That nobody has.
But wouldn't the program we'd have to know whether Stage 4 Park was, whether city properties were not.
Right, we will, but we can turn it on, and right now, anybody with an event will be put into the program, and we'll determine, going through the process on the program for approvals, whether or not that event can happen. Obviously, if some large event puts it in and we don't have an answer, we're not going to approve it until we know that we can, and that's going to end up coming for a meeting too. I
guess we're talking about the same thing, but the order of things, right? So are you going to put who can submit an event in the program, or are you just going to open to everybody?
I think right now, my thought would be we just open it up. If people know whether they can have an event or not, whether they should. And the ones that doesn't, then hopefully as it goes through the approval process on the viewpoint, we'll determine whether or not they can have their event too. For a whole number of reasons why they go through the approval process. All right.
Okay.
So Joanne, would we need to vote to turn this on?
Okay, I just wanted to backtrack a little bit. On my questionnaire was on the application, you have to do 45 days or 60 days prior to an event. Due to the circumstances, are we going to waive that?
I think at this point, I would suggest waiving that time limit, given that everybody's eager to get back onto it. We just found out from the governor what his plans were and where we're headed. And by August, we should be able to open up everything. I don't know if we'll quite be ready for that. But, if we put 45 and 60 days in there, nobody's doing anything for the summer.
I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, so I think that would be waived off of, but at this point, we'd waive that out of the program.
Okay.
The other
Do
thing, if
you-
I can just interject real fast, is, they talk about subject to public health vaccination, blah, blah, blah. Industries will be permitted to open, and talks about street festivals, parades, and agricultural festivals, 50% of their previous capacity. And it's, how do you determine what 50% of a capacity was for anything at Stage 4 Park, or any event that's happened in town where you've had, like the Fiestas, for instance? I mean, how do you know what 50% of a capacity was?
Well, and that was going to be my question today, is not how do you know what 50% of the capacity is, how do you control it and keep it at 50% or below when it's the Horribles Parade, or it's Fiesta, or it's Schooner Festival in public
fireworks.
spaces that people just come walking down the street and are there, and who's doing the head count, and how are you going to control access? We're not going to fence off these areas of town. I mean, there's just absolutely no way to manage that. You cannot manage that. It's not manageable, period.
I don't disagree. Before we get into all that, though, I want to make sure we keep back to where we are. Let's finish up where we are, then we can go into that, because there's a lot of comments on what we need to do with that. So let's get the program out of the way. The other issue we didn't mention with the program was for the events. Well, maybe we should take that another time later on too. Let's just get this approved if we can. Do we need to vote to turn on the permitting program?
I don't think you do, but also if you turn it on though, you haven't decided what events, when they're going to start being held. That
Right. So that's what, right now, if we turn it on, anybody who wants to put in an event can put in an event. And then we'll go through the process of approvals and reviewing it and determine whether or not we'll have the event. And then we can talk about some details next after we do this as to what we want to allow and not allow. Jill?
Okay.
Well, I think what everybody's trying to get back to, Bill, I understand the point you're trying to get to, is that shouldn't there be guidance? Well, I would recommend that we put the guidance forth to the applicants so that they don't, not anyone who wants to put one in puts one in, and then we have to do all the work to tell them no. I feel like there should be some messaging going forward that says, we will consider this type of event on this date, and it should reflect exactly what the state says, and this type, so that we're not getting applications for things that we're not going to entertain. And if, for example, the mayor decides we're not going to do any events at Stage 4 Park, then we don't waste time submitting those. If we determine, like what Eric's getting to, if it's an event in which you cannot maintain capacity at 50%, don't put in an application. So I think what everyone's trying to get around to is just opening the floodgate is going to cause a flood. What are the parameters around which, before we just say, yes, open the floodgate, what are all the parameters around which? And I get what you're saying is just the turning on piece, but there's much more to that.
So
Yeah,
I
but
would
I
go back
think-
to what the chief was saying earlier, and that was,
And
if there
real
is- I
quick,
know
Billy,
they went to
let
the
me
Fiesta and, sorry?
let me interrupt real quick, because I know what you're trying to get to, and I think I know why. So Billy deals with this permitting more than anybody, right? He is absolutely, his office is probably the most expert in its use, and I would support, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, the idea behind what he's pushing here, I agree with, because the people that are going to put in a permit for anything, building a house, putting in a smoke detector, having an event, these people are not supposed to just come walking into our system and throw stuff at the wall to see if it sticks. This is not what professionals or event organizers are supposed to do, no different than builders or architects or fire alarm installation companies. These people that come forward are supposed to be, especially these large events that are the most concerning ones that we're talking about, we need to lay out parameters. I get where you're coming from, Jill, but that's their responsibility to know that they have a legal right and that the state has already said that these are authorized events at this particular time, at this particular size. And our process, we shouldn't have Billy or Vicky or whomever shouldn't have to go into this software every 3 days to update the latest change from the governor's office or the latest change from us, to tell people what they're supposed to already know. If they're the event organizer, if they're the builder of said home, build it to code. Okay, if you want to run an event, run it to the governor's orders and or what the city puts out. So I think there's a different venue to put out that information as to what the city, the mayor is going to do. And it should not muddy the waters in the permitting process, because trust me, every time we touch that thing, it creates a domino effect and a trickle effect that Billy's guys and my
That's not what
folks
I
deal
meant
with
on the
now.
cover page, Eric. I didn't mean chief. I meant in the text on the cover page to give the guidance
Yep,
there so that before
but-
they click,
But even the cover, there is no
not
real
in the
cover
software, on the
page.
website.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but even that is dynamic. Then you're talking updating it constantly, and I think we transmit that data and information in press releases and direct conversations and policy versus an operational piece of software that it's a process. It's not a policy, it is the process. So there's things that are policy that are out there for people to read and follow and understand. And then there's procedures and processes that are wholly separate and distinct. And I've only played with this software a little bit, especially in the absence of my inspector. And I can tell you that trying to work that stuff in there, and correct me if I'm wrong, Billy, and I think this is why you're going that way.
Oh, you're right on
Going to
base on
make
that.
it more difficult than easier. Because it's
Right.
easier to just say no and deny them and give them a reason, and it spits it right back to their email and they get their answer, we're done, right? Refer to the governor's most recent edition
Max
of
is
X.
looking at you, Jill is looking at you, and I'm looking at you going, hello, people do not listen. We told him you can't have that. I have to call Max 1,000 times. Max, they're having a wedding and it's not 25 people and they're having this. But I understand, but the fact is we got to decide. Until August 1st, there is nothing happening at Stage 4 Park then. Because the fact is, who's going to go control it? I can't have Mark up there watching how many people are sitting at a wedding or how many's doing a funeral or a memorial or a gathering, because we don't have the people to do that. It's going to be packed anyway. So are we going to issue permits for the Stage 4? Mark, what do you think? Should we do it? Nothing until after August 1st, it opens up completely. This way, nobody babysits, and put it on there. If you want to have a wedding or whatever, you know, it's after August 1st. So they'll know, they'll plan and go somewhere else. If you're going to have, you know, you can't have fireworks because who's going to control that July 4th? You're not going to have Fiesta. You're not going to have that. But the Waterfront Festival might want to come in August because it's open up to the public and we don't have to babysit. That's something that they'll have to come in and try to do something. The same thing on certain things. I feel that if we put something there, they'll look at it and say, well, don't even bother until August. Because to say, well, you know what, I'm only having 25 people. I'm only going to go on to the gazebo and then we're leaving. And it's the same thing. Do you want buses to come in and how do you don't want them? And do you want them on the beaches for weddings? Because they have to have, these are all permits that they need. And how do we say, well, you can't because how are we going to do it? And they'll say, well, the beach is packed anyways. Are you going to do that and whatever? That I think, right, Mark's going to have to really think about, because where he issues those kind of permits too, is to figure out what we really want to do. We all stick to one plan. This way, whatever comes out, we push a button, because that's how we're going to do it for the DPW and all the work. That's how we're going to do it this summer for the police. That's how we're going to do it for the harbor master. We're all going to stay on one page and we all have the same letter and say, there you go, we don't want to hear it. Say, there you go, we don't want to hear it, because we cannot. Last year was a pandemic and we're going as we learn. Now we know, now we're going, and that's it, because we're burnt and we don't have the staff and no one wants to come to work. And I'm not talking about us, I'm talking about your restaurants, your kids at the, you know, for after school, at the beaches, the everything, everyone, we can't, lifeguards. I mean, it's limited as it is now. And so I really feel that we have to work on one thing, because I have to agree that they'll look right at their front page. And if there's nothing there, well, you didn't put it down. Just like we want to give tickets. Well, it didn't say temporary. It didn't say, they'll come up with something that, well, what do we do? So I want us all to have one thing. So we all have access to that one page, not me, but you guys who are going to be harassed. All that one page saying, there you go, there you go, there you go. And that's how we're going to have to follow, because we don't even have enough staff in the police department. We're not going to, you have to go ticket them. You have to go move them. They have to, we can't do that. We can't. And I was talking to the harbor master's office. They're gonna be just bombarded out there. We're gonna be bombarded here, and we need one plan. So Mark, what do you want to do? Because you're gonna have to control it if you give that permit up stage 4.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think we issue anything until, August 1st at the earliest. Here's one of our concerns is you're supposed to limit an outdoor event in a public area to 250 people. Well, if your event has 250 people, then technically nobody else can be in the park that day. And that's going to be pretty much impossible to control. As far as I agree with you on the weddings, we've had a lot of calls. Well, it's going to be less than 10 people. It's going to be less than 25 people. And we've said, there's nothing, we're not issuing permits until the governor has put things pretty much back to normal. Because
I agree, because you know what? Stage 4 Park was packed last year. It was packed. How do you tell those people, okay, who's going to count how many there? Just on a high, never mind the plovers at Good Harbor, but never mind the Half Moon Beach. When you look down, it look like ants during or high tide. We'll go like, oh wait, we got who's Max? Go count them now. We did that with the park. It was horrible. But the fact is, I feel bad because if you want a wedding of 10 people, sometimes it's just, I want to use a gazebo, and I've seen the city close their eyes. They're running in and out. By the time you get there, they're already done because it's not a wedding. But the fact is, you know what? After 5 o'clock, do you want to say, yes, you can have your thing after a certain time when you know that everyone goes home, then that's up to you guys to decide. But until prime time, we know, even Pavilion Beach was packed last year, and I still think it's going to be this year. I really do. I do. TJ does. We all do. We all looked at, the police do. I mean, we're discovered, and they think that, a lot of people are going to be traveling. They're going to be coming this way. They will be coming. If we see that in July, we have nobody, well, then there's a problem, and then we can open up, but I doubt. My own personal opinion, but you guys are the experts. I'll take whatever marking you guys want to do. I just want what you're going to do, so we have it. Chris will organize it, and we all have the same exact message, and no changing after that.
So are we going to have a committee that determines this? How are we going to figure out what we're going to open up and what we're not going to open up? I guess I'm a little confused with that.
Well, whatever the governor said you can do. If we can control it, then you can open it. You can't control a park. You can't control the beach. You can't control whatever. And they need to go through the Board of Health and all these things too. And if the Board of Health says, Mayor, stage 4's already packed. You already have 200 people there. Where are they going to put 200 people? Stage 4 Park is huge. Who's going to go count
Right.
How many people? Just the boulevard on a good day was 250 people. You don't see it because everyone's around. Who's going 1, 2, 3? I mean, to protect all of us, my opinion is until the government opens up more, until then we stay as is.
So we'll have no events at Stagefoot Park and no events at any of the beaches. We'll continue that to August,
Yep.
until
My
August.
opinion, like I said, Mark, he's DPW, and Max, he'll have to count in. It's impossible. We'll have to say, okay, well, who's gonna do these events? Who's gonna find out? How can you tell on a beach? Okay, that how are you gonna count on a beach how many people who goes to what party?
Right.
You know.
Jill?
Thank you, Mayor. So as she said, the mayor, Brian, Max, those of us dealing with the restaurants and businesses, I mean, they're going to try to get around everything they can possibly get around. So they're going to tell you it's 10 and it's going to be 50. They're going to say, well, so thank you, Mayor, for your support on that. And I like the approach that the mayor is suggesting, that I think we can go by what the governor's saying on private properties, right, on private events and related even to road races, although most, as Mark had pointed out, start and end on public property. But I think public property events, and I'm really looking to Max, and public property events and events where you can't, how can you, you really have to demonstrate to us, how are you going to maintain 50% capacity? I think anything like that has to wait till August 1st. But so I don't know what the language is, and maybe Bill, you're right, maybe we need to take a pause, submit some sort of language or something. I don't know what the committee needs to vote on, but I don't want to try to make it up here because that never goes well. But I think that approach makes sense. Just and like you said, on the website, and changing the website, just so you know, that is where we put policy. And And it is not hard to change. Chris does it often. Shelley and my team does it often. I mean, we change and update the website, the policy piece of the website often, and that's the gatekeeper before they click on the getting into the process piece. So, so I don't know what the exact language is, but that kind of moving in that direction that the mayor suggested, I think makes sense, because people will, and already, and Joanne knows this, the calls she's getting, I mean, soon as they think they can do something, they run quickly in all directions. And I mean, Brian and Max, anyway, so that's those of us fielding those calls have really experienced that so far.
One of the complicating ones I've just got today is coordinators for the Blackburn Challenge.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, there you go. So he called me up today and they want to do it. Now they're saying, we'll keep it to 200. And they use Mac Bell's property on that side of the beach. Now, is that technically his for them to use?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
It doesn't matter, Max, because they start at the boat ramp and they got to cross. Mac Bell does not own Pavilion Beach. They got to cross over Pavilion Beach at the finish line. So if it's a public property issue, they're starting at public property at the boat ramp and finishing on public property at Pavilion Beach, which Max Bell does not own.
Yeah, okay, and I'm fine with that. I just need to know what the truth is on it.
I think they were talking about their gathering after that they do in the parking lot.
And they said they weren't going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically they're saying that they are just going to hand people a sandwich and a soda and say goodbye. But people, I think, are naturally going to hang out. They're not going to just walk away and say, thank you, I've enjoyed rowing for the day. So.
When is that, Max? Is that?
They're saying July.
Yeah, so I mean, move to August.
Yeah.
That's what I told them. I said, why don't you just wait, 2-3 weeks and just do it in August? Well, traditionally we do it in July. I'm like, well, traditionally this isn't the traditional year.
Because if we start doing that, they want to do the dory races.
Right.
So how do you do 200 people at the dory races? Why can't we just do the dory? We're not going to come. Why can't we just do this? And that's how it all begins. We have to have one thing. Not for me, because you're going to get the calls, and then Joanne's going to run to Chris, and Chris is going to run to me, and I'm going to holler at all you.
So the two other concerns to think about here too is if we keep referring everybody to July, then we're going to just open up another can of worms of, sorry, you can't do it in July. Somebody already has that date, but we've always had it. We'll end up with those arguments. We'll try to squeeze everything into July. And the other issue that
August 1st.
August, yes, sorry.
Yeah.
And the other concern though is like the Blackburn Challenge, some of these road races, you're going to get to the point where some of these events that happen all the time, they're going to say, forget it, we're not telling anybody, we're just going to go do it.
Well, the road races, Bill, the road races is moving.
The worst thing.
The road races, they're moving, okay? And they're going one stop, and then they're just running around. And they don't all run together, because if we can all run together, that's something different. But everyone is separated, so because you don't all run together. So, and people really don't stand on the side too much to watch it. On the dory races or on the Blackburn, when they come, they're exhausted, because after you're rowing all that, I've been there to volunteer. They're all exhausted. They're not leaving. They might want the sun, like he said. They're not going to say, "I'm taking my lunch," and I can't breathe, And so they're going to sit there, but you already have people sitting there at the beach. That's the whole thing. It's already on a beach. It's not like you're starting off at Pavilion and goodbye. You're going to come up at the State Fish Pier, and everyone's going to straggle in at one time. But mostly on those, you straggle in, but then you crash right there, or you're coming up to get something that is his private property. He can do what he wants, but then you also have the hotel right next door, and you also have people on the beach. It's how do you say to them, move?
I understand that part of it, but I'm concerned when they decide they're not going to tell anybody and they're just going to do it anyways.
Well,
and now we have all those incidences where, the Blackburn Challenge, we've had a few incidences with them.
Yeah, he even admitted that that's what happened last year, that people just showed up anyway.
And now we open up the door to other problems where now, public safety's got to respond to incidences. They didn't even know what's going on.
Well, then what do we do, Bill? Then what do we do when someone says, well, I want to sing outside and I'm having my band and you can't stop me anyways? I'm going to do it. I'm going to sit at Stage 4 Park and everyone's going to come around. The police have to say, if it's not allowed, it's not allowed. And that's what it says. One story, I'm sorry, it's going to put more burden on the police department, because they're going to have to say, you can't do that. And you know what, and the risk it that, you didn't get permits for wherever you did is wrong. And they know that. And if they're all going to come in August 1st and they're all going to be bombarded every single day, Well, I'm sorry, Joanne, there goes all those permits, but you know what? Go right ahead. You know what you want to. The only thing that I can see that's really not road races, I really don't see unless they're doing marathon road races and whatever they call it. When you do running and biking and swimming and
triathlons.
whatever. Thank you.
Triathlons, yes.
Thank you. Honey, I don't run, I don't do any of those, so it doesn't, I don't know what it's called, but the fact is, you know, something like that, then you know, whatever, but other than that, it's hard. I mean, believe me, you know what, I know Peter Anastas' family wants to do something for him. You know that there's no way he's gonna have just 200 people.
Right.
Because Stage 4 would be bombarded. And then we said, do it August, because you can have whoever you want, and we don't have to, you know, say you have to leave. And that's what we don't want to end up doing, is having someone saying you have to leave, because it's hard. You know, everyone wants to be out there, but how do you do it? It's
How do you
all
do
up
it?
to you. If you guys say, you know what, man, we can handle it, go right ahead. I'm going on Chad's boat. We're going out, and then I'm going to jump on TJ's boat, and I'm going to Wingy. We're rafting up, right, Chad?
Can I go back to the road races, because they start and stop at Good Harbor Beach? So if in the summer, are you gonna have that? You gonna allow that?
Not when there's parking, you won't be able to.
So you can't say road races that they'll be allowed when they start at a beach during beach season.
Well, we'll have to say you have to start someplace else. You can
Most
have
of the
it-
races are in and out before parking starts, before they interfere with
They
parking.
do a 6, well, you have to talk to Mark on that one, because he'll know when it starts and people are waiting in line to get in. And where they're gonna park.
Mark, do you want to weigh in on that?
Drive races at the beach during the beach season. It's always been on either side. We don't do it from like Memorial Day to Labor Day, because the parking lot's open at 8 o'clock in the morning. We'll do it, you know, in the months leading up to it, and we'll do it in the fall, but not during the season. And the other question I have on the road races, are those going to be subjected to the 250 maximum? Because if that's the case, a lot of the road races aren't going to happen because they can't afford to put them on with that small of a number of participants.
Max, am I wrong? Is it after?
Well, August 1st, all bets are off.
Right.
So it's back, I wouldn't say back to normal, but it's,
Close.
I think those limitations are going to disappear.
Yeah, I think you're right, Max. So it's more about that August 1st line.
Right. Yep. The city can create whatever policy that's more
Right.
restrictive based on the governor's policies. They just can't do anything less restrictive. So if the city wants to make the statement that we are not going to do any public property events until August 1st, just put it in writing so everybody knows, and just leave it at that, and you're done.
Including road races. Is what we're
Road
saying.
race, anything, doesn't matter if it begins and ends, or even begins or ends at a public property, where there's a risk of, you know, people running into people who weren't expecting to go into a road race, then just say no. You know, that's it. Wait till after August 1st. And the way climate change is going, you've got August, September, October, starting into November, you'll be fine. Don't worry.
Joanne, would you say most of the people that are chomping at the bit are the road races? And Jill, do you think there's other people that are categorically going to be, I mean, let's be practical about this, because we're all trying to say the same thing. We all want to have the same message. We can share it in the right format in a timely fashion that won't hurt the permitting system. We want to be consistent with the times of the dates and defer to the state. But what is it that you're getting a lot of phone calls now on it? I'm assuming it's the road races, because they're seeing that May date and thinking they're gonna
There's road races, and there's also events that were bike races that had cookouts at Stage Fort Park. There's somebody wanted a rally at Stage Fort Park. A lot of special events out, you know, they were the Blues Festival.
Yeah.
You know, Reed's Ride, the Cure, the bike cure there in September, but she would have no problem because we open up August 1st. Also, and it's the road races. So
Yeah, I thought so.
I'm getting, same as Joanne, Stage Fort Park related events.
Yep.
But I'm also getting street festivals, block parties.
Right.
So block parties and what's the downtown one?
The bazaar.
Bazaar, sidewalk bazaar. And
That's in August, tell them, everything in
so
August.
yeah, and that's what, so far, my guidance has been what we're talking about here is if it's in August, you'll be,
Right.
that's one thing. So Waterfront Festival, obviously it's Stage 4 Park, but prior to August, so anyway, I'm getting the same types of calls.
So
Stage 4
whoever,
Park being a big
Yeah.
question.
so whoever wants to make the motion, I would think the motion would go something to the effect of, basically, no public events, using events, including road races, to occur in the city of Gloucester until August 1st. And that's it. And that's basically, that's where we have to start. The rest of the semantics of managing the viewpoint, that doesn't have to be part of the vote per se, but we also don't want to screw it up. I hear that. And, as to Jill's point, I'm sure we'll be doing a lot of messaging around this, and it doesn't necessarily have to be tied to the form. But we do, on the flip side, we don't want to introduce more work to the people that have to go through this. So we'll find those efficiencies, but let's get to the vote so that we can make sure we can talk about the rest of this, is what would be my recommendation here, if it's helpful for everyone.
Well, I would say that turning on the permitting system would only be turned on for private events. And you could even, and I don't know if this is even possible on the form. This is a Vicky question more than anything. Billy may know that we could even have the spot where you check this for private events, check that for public events, and have the public events muted at this point with the notation at the end of it, parentheses, whatever, that this is not an option until August 1st.
We have to-
at the
I
soonest.
don't think,
We have to permit them now. We can't, we'd have to say, they just have to distinguish that it's August 1st. We can't tell them they can't apply till August for an event that's happening in August. So we can't, we
Right, no,
most
they-
certainly
I'm
want to start
saying that,
permitting them now.
Right.
We don't want to block them.
yeah, Chief, you can't really do that. The viewpoint isn't, as you were saying earlier, you're right on, viewpoint is not designed to be changed every 3 days or every
Right.
3 months. It's a program that you set up and you use. It does ask whether you're on public property or private property. I guess one of the questions for that will be, is a road going to consider to be public property? Or are we just talking about parcels like Stage 4 Park, Good Harbor Beach?
Yeah, no, the roads are public, right?
Right, well, some are, some aren't, right? So then we'll get into that conversation. But for in general, for roads, if we're gonna allow people to do events on roads, small events on roads, would that be acceptable? Or are we gonna say, no, definitely, if it's on private property, we'll hear it, otherwise it's denied?
Yeah, I think that they can put in the permit now, as Jill stated, they've got to get ahead of this thing, because these large events and events on public property take a lot more work and effort, so that they can put it in. But can you bake into the system when they check off, where is the event held, public or private property? If they check the public property, can the very next question be, when is the date of your event? And that if it's after August 1st, it would allow them to continue. But if it's prior to August 1st, they get a notice that the city is not permitting any events prior to August 1st.
I think that's just something you do in the initial review. You go by, you'll see it's on public property, you review it, it's on public property, nope, can't have it, not allowed. Because then it's got to go back and change it back again for anything after August 1st to allow.
Well,
it.
I think if it doesn't even allow them to put it in, if the event is prior to August
Right, but
1st,
what
it's
I'm
more
saying
efficient.
is-
We don't even have to touch it.
I don't know if it'll go that, if it'll do that, distinguish the dates to when it will go in and won't go in. You know what I mean? So after August 1st, after you're done with that, I don't know if that'll ever change. That's the problem I always get from Vicky is you can't go back and change. The program doesn't make changes very well. So you have to eventually go back and change that out for next year. Right? Because if it said August 1st for next year, then nobody will be able to put anything in. And that's where the problems come with the program.
The other inquiries that I've been getting is to set up music on the streets. Downtown, I know the boulevard is not allowed, but some people do. So downtown streets are public properties. We're not gonna permit that because people just want to get out there. They want to do something for the public to, lighten up the mood and everything. So they want to just sit around and play music for people.
So don't forget, the May 10th is actually where they mentioned the first instance of singing.
Mhm.
Singing will be permitted indoors with strict distancing requirements. They don't say, well, wait a minute before I speak.
Yes, they have to meet the performance venue
Right, thank you.
standards, which means that the performers themselves have to be 10 feet apart and the audience has to be 25 feet away if they're singing.
That's
So,
indoors or out.
It can only be indoors.
that's-
I guess with regard to outdoors, Max, I don't know if there's just no guidance for outdoors or.
yeah, but they actually haven't updated
I
that.
haven't seen that either.
Yeah, and knowing the state, if it's going to change on Monday, they're going to let us know at 3 p.m. on Friday.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
So,
Don't worry, Max, you have the measuring tape, but did you have a noodle
Yeah,
that you just go by when
exactly.
people are singing?
Right. I just want to mention that we have 3 attendees attending the meeting, and there's one person that has their hand up, and I didn't know whether the committee would allow this person to speak.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
I know, so I don't know. I mean, it is a public meeting. Do you have any objection for him to speak?
I don't have any objection. Anybody have any objections?
Nope.
Can we put a timer on it though?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay, so Bob Blair, he would like to speak.
Can you let him in?
Yeah, I did. Mr.
Okay.
Blair?
Yeah, hi, everybody. I'm the president of the Cape Ann Rowing Club, the organizer of the Blackburn Challenge race. I've been listening and I appreciate all the hard work and tough decisions that you all need to make here. I did reach out earlier to Max just because we had a meeting last night and we'd like normally to do our race and I can understand the pushback to have us move back into August. So I think what I'd like to do based on what I'm hearing is apply to run the Blackburn Challenge on the 7th of August, and we'll still run it at half capacity, which is 200. We normally get 400 people, and we'll still do our full COVID plan, which is going to be a rolling start and a rolling finish on the water with no beach party. We will have some cold beverages up there and probably some light sandwiches for people that need to get their strength back, but there won't be any activities on the beach. There'll be no aggregations of the large crowd at any time, and it'll be more or less an informal running of the event. But if that seems reasonable to you all, I'd like to go ahead and file that application as soon as possible.
Okay, so file on that application. You won't be able to do it until we do turn on the Viewpoint program.
I understand.
Once we have that, then yes, you'll be able to put your application in, and we can start the process from there.
so
Hey,
Bob,
Bob.
did you,
Yeah.
forgive me, did you get my email that I
Yeah, I
sent you?
did. Thank you very
Okay,
much, Max.
so you
I
did-
did send you a quick reply.
Oh, okay, sorry, I haven't seen it yet. So what I'll do, Bob, as soon as that's turned on, I'll let you know.
Excellent, excellent.
Chad, you had a question?
Yeah, Bob, have you reached out to Rockport and have you applied for your marine event permit? I didn't
Yeah,
see it.
well, we've been holding off on everything, waiting for the governor's, decision, which just happened a few days ago. So before we went through the process to filling out the Coast Guard marine event permit, we thought the first thing first was check with the Board of Health. So, but yes, we will be in contact with all the agencies. We'll be running our normal safety boat program that we do every year, and all that stuff.
So I just want to say, I've just been telling people to check the website because I've had so many inquiries that I just can't keep up with them to reply personally to all of them.
It's a
So-
popular event. It's a popular event.
I understand that, but I'm just saying is like, I've been telling my inquiries on everything just to check the website because we didn't
Thank
know when we were going to open. And then also we might decide on opening the Viewpoint and there might be a glitch in it. So it's always good to check the website.
Wonderful.
All right. So I guess we need somebody to make a motion to No events on public property until August 1st.
So
And
moved.
Oh, wait a
I'll
minute.
second.
can we get that worded better? I'll say it.
We really want to get the wording
Nice
down.
try, Chief.
It's pretty simple. No events on public property until
Well, I think
after
the
August 1st.
important part too is, as Joanne reminded us last time, is that this committee is making a recommendation to the mayor's office.
Yes. Okay.
And then the mayor will make this decision, if I understand it correctly.
Yes.
And thank you for being here today, Mayor. Really important to have you as part of this discussion.
Because I want to remind everyone
Well,
that.
thank you. From now on, I'm leaving it to Chris, I'm leaving it to the Board of Health and all of you guys. So you can have a wonderful day because I'm gonna go out and do the road race.
No, I just
But
wanted to.
thank you, Bob, because I really enjoyed the Dory races and the challenge there. And I used to love the tents and it was great. The massages that everyone you talked to
That's
them, it
right.
was great. It really was great, you know, and like in August, it's open up and I thank you. And thank you for still saying you're gonna cut it down. So that, you know what, that just shows up teamwork. That's great. Thank you, Bob. And thank you.
You're
whole
welcome.
committee.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
And so, you know, my recommendations will be here, so you don't have to bring it to me. It's already approved for what you're saying, so you don't have to send it to me. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Don't hang up, Mayor. You never know what's gonna come out next.
No, what I wanted to
River!
Can I just reiterate that we are an advisory, and even though we vote, the final say would be the mayor. I want to put it in the record. That's all I want to do. Okay. So what was the motion again? Can someone just make a motion and then?
We're going for the River Fest in September. We're gonna have a,
We're gonna let the party planner make
That's
the motion.
right.
No, I will stay true to the discussion. So so what I think we're saying is I move that the committee recommend to the mayor's office that we follow the guidelines offered by the governor as it comes to allowing events, with the exception that we will only allow events that start or end or take place on public property after August 1st. Does that sound?
Second.
All right, we have a second motion and we have it seconded. Further discussion?
The way that motion's worded, if I start a road race in my backyard and end it in my buddy's backyard, I can still have it. You might want to be more specific.
Not if you ran down a public road.
Yeah.
Or ran down an old road open to the public.
Yep.
So you can run from my house to Anthony Saputo's house, but that's it.
Not how the motion was.
Two-sided?
that's
Read it
all I
back,
can
because
do.
I thought it said starts, crosses over, or ends on public property. Isn't
Starts,
that what you said?
Starts, ends, or takes place on public property. And I think that's our recommendation. That's our recommendation, and the mayor's office would define, refine the wording. They don't.
Yeah, because this is a recommendation for the mayor to consider. This is not city policy being set forth as of yet, right? It still has additional process to go through.
Yes. Correct.
Okay.
Other comments? Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Okay, Chad Johnson,
Yes.
Mark Cole,
Yes.
Chief Smith,
Yes.
Tom Sayers,
Yes.
Lieutenant Quinn,
Yes.
Bill Sanborn,
Yes.
Brian Newman,
Yes.
Joe Cahill,
Yes. Yes.
and Phil Harvey,
Yes.
and Joanne Sinos, yes. The motion passes 10 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay. So now we still haven't turned the program back on yet, right? We're still going to do that for Monday? I don't see why we can't do that for Monday, right? All right, and Joanne?
Only if we get it out, the language, I mean, if you turn it on, but the mayor still has to consider this for August 1st, then people are going to they're not going to know that. I have to put something on the website.
Well, I've
So
never
can-
voted or got anything before from the special act, from the special event committee, so I don't know how the process is, because this is the first time that actually it needs the mayor's approval. I thought it was just P and D because that's why we appointed this advisory. So as of today, right now, I am advising you, Chris is on there, I'm letting you, I approved what you just passed. So you can get what you need to get out.
Okay.
And
So-
Chris can work, if Chris can work on the wording, right? And if we can get all those pieces in place, I think it,
Yeah,
And honestly, turning on that software changes really nothing other than the mechanism, right? Because we have this paper permit process and SEAC for all these things to go through. If I want to run a road race, I want to do all these things, I just come and get everything from your office, which is who's getting bombarded. This just
Right.
gives them a different avenue to submit it. And there's no requirement for us to process it overnight or to deny it overnight or to approve it with stipulations overnight. This just gives them the vessel and the process to follow versus the scattered paper processes that we're using currently, right?
Exactly. It just lets them put it in. It's a new form for them to fill out online, and it does relieves the pressure from Joanne's office. So now they can just say, you need to go online, put it on online. And that's all they don't have to try to answer all these questions and everything with that way. And Joanne, if you do get people who are calling because they're having problems, refer them to my department, because as the chief said, we're the best ones to deal with that unless it's an IT problem. And we can do that.
Even though my office is kind of proficient in it because we do the dogs. and
Right,
this-
I know, but I'm just saying you can send it over for
I'll
this.
gladly give it to you.
You will find there is a difference. This is similar to building permits more than the dog license permits. So there's a lot of different avenues in it that don't always click up right. And even with a building permit, there's things that we have to go back through, and some things just don't trigger right. I don't know why, but they don't. And so that's why.
I do want to mention for the attendees that are in this meeting, if you have multiple events, that you can only submit one application per date.
Yes.
You cannot do multiple dates on one application. So I just want to put that out for the attendees that are on this call.
So for what, like the block parties, like if you,
Yes, they have to do one application for each date that they want a block party for.
I see, okay.
Before, we used to combine them all,
Right.
and then after it would be,
it's too much.
we need to change this date, we
Yeah.
want this date. So even for road races, multiple ones, then you need one application for each date of your road race.
Yep, gotcha.
Similar, if you were doing a block party and it was 2 days or 3 days, you could do that. That's one event. So that could go on one permit. But if you were doing 5 or 6 road races throughout the year, each road race would have to have a separate application. All right, anything else we haven't talked about? Oh, there's that waving hand again.
Welcome to the committee, Tom. You'll it's nice to see you. I have a request that I'd like to bring forward. I think we're going to have a lot of requests coming forward quickly. I know some of the ones that Joanne and I both talked to, including Waterfront Festival, Carrie's on this, block parties, others. May I suggest that the committee consider adding a special meeting sometime once we get a sense of the number of applications coming through, so that we can, I think sometime either in mid-May or mid-June, we should consider, or both, adding a special meeting to get some of these applications moving if possible.
Let's see what comes in and how they're dealt with, because we do have the ability to individually, for me or Joanne or any member, to deny them right there and they go no further. And
It's
some could be
different,
put
yeah.
off, and only some will have to come back to the commission. Some may not even, the applicants may not even be back again. So let's see how it works out. And yes, we can keep that in mind, and we can make sure we review it at our next meeting, regular scheduled meeting, to see how things are piling up. And if we think we need something in the meantime, we can surely do that.
Hey, Joanne, just on that note, with Jill's request, and I totally get where she's coming from, that hey, something might pop up and we all go, oh, wow, we didn't think about this. And it's a little too dynamic to flow through a permitting process to iron out the details. So what are the parameters to have a special meeting? How many days notice and public notice is it the same as the licensing commission or?
Yes, we need at least 48 hours to post the agenda
Okay.
and make sure we have a quorum when we post a special meeting. As long as we have a quorum in 48 hours, we can take up any matter.
I'm hoping, Chief, we don't have to do that because I don't want to get in, I understand, but I don't want to get in the process of, oh, somebody's coming in, we'll have a meeting for him, we'll have a meeting for this one, we'll have a meeting for that one. Most of these people should be planning out far enough ahead that when it does pop up, we can deal with it on our next meeting, right? And deal with it right then. I don't want to try not to get into, oh, well, this guy has this thing, we have to meet for this. Then we'll be meeting every other day. So we want to try to stop that, keep that under control. All right, any other waving hands? That's a bye wave, right?
No, me again. Sorry, I'm organizational. I can't but think this. So we haven't had to think about the calendar, the spreadsheet piece for quite some time.
Think about that a lot. I know who has it right now. It's not me.
Now, as we know that they're going to be trying to fill up dates fast and furious. Well, anyway, if we add Shelley, so at one point in time, I had taken that Joanne, I know does a lot of the administrative tasks, fall in her office for that. If we add Shelley to, I don't know where we want her in the process. I don't know early on in the permitting. Anyway, I do offer Shelley Shalina, our admin staff, to take that back over. We had handed, I think actually someone in the fire department took it after Marie left. Anyway, I'm willing to take that back on. I just want to make sure that we don't lose track of that. And maybe it's a report that pumps right out of Viewpoint, which she obviously works really well with IT. So
okay, we can figure that out.
Help organize that.
We can figure that out. I'm not sure that will do that. I was talking with Vicky about that to see if it would automatically populate a calendar.
One of the things that I've shared with Ryan and Vicky was some of the old forms that Rosalie used to do. And I saw that on the shared drive. There is seemingly a way that perhaps either a Google Calendar can be integrated, but yes, let's use the software that we have to do a more intelligent version as opposed to us copying and pasting a Excel grid. That is the goal for now, but we're going to leave that with our lovely IT department from Viewpoint first. But there also needs to be some sort of front-facing one, I think, too, that we need to rally around. And I don't know if that's the city's website, if that's the Chamber Discover special, I don't know. But I'm with you, Jill, about awareness about these events in a more understood way, even if not just behind the scenes. And one of the things I was hopeful to do is we have with our Google Workplace license, I was hopeful to kind of do what I saw Salem working on initially, which was a reopening, like a microsite. It's just, that's one more thing that I have to try to manage and keep up to date. So I was a little wary of that. I wanted to see what efficiencies I could find first from this whole automated process before I would offer something like that. So all that is to say is, hurry up and wait, as usual. But I also don't want to especially I think about Joanne, I don't think it's necessarily her purview to keep this thing up to date. So it's that thing of who's got the bandwidth. And I mean,
Already started it with the farmer's market.
Never mind, Joanne's got it. Never mind, I'll stop talking.
No, but well, we had to because we had the farmer's market. So I do have an Excel spreadsheet started, but if we're going to integrate to some kind of Google Calendar, it would be better. And like I said, I had a part-time person start on this for me.
Okay, if we have Shelley, I'm going to jump on having Shelley do it if we can, because Shelley also has a good connection with IT. And it just works to be able to make the two of them. If we can make this work somehow, they're in the same building, they're convenient and it's easy.
Steve Jobs used to say automagically, right? If it happens automatically.
Anything that you can take back is fine.
Okay. All right, I'll try to deal with that next week, that and adding Max onto this and we'll see if we can get this up and running. It might not actually go on Monday. Maybe we'll put it off to Tuesday, Tuesday or Wednesday before we actually put it on, so I can meet with Vicky and make sure we get all the I's and T's dotted and crossed.
Yeah, and Billy, if you get a chance, can you just send out how that's formatted, how that's put together, what the workflow is through that of who it's going to go to in the order and who's going to be the one receiving it in each of the departments, just so we can make
We
sure
have
that
that
we're not.
all done. That's all has been all done. I forget who was getting it, but I think, I'll have to check with Vicky, because I think Adam might be the guy who actually was left in that blank. We were supposed to submit 2
Well, I'm
people at
asking.
least from each department. What'd you say?
That's why I'm asking, because I want to
Yeah.
make sure it's correct on our end. And we're not the dead end and everybody's
Well,
going, are you guys
what I
going to
would-
sign off or what? Yeah, no.
What I would suggest
Ooh.
you do, Chief, is send over to Vicky the 2 names you want on there. So it goes to one person. If that person's out or something, it'll bounce to the other one. I believe it's how we're setting it up. And she
Okay.
can tell you who's there and I think you're the other person on it.
Yeah, it's gonna be Phil and Tom. Surprise,
Yeah.
gentlemen.
So, yeah, so just send that over to Vicky and she'll change those and plug those. That's an easy change. All right. All right. Any other questions? Any other business?
Motion to adjourn.
Second, okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
Who motioned first?
Chief,
Okay, who was second?
I didn't catch the second. Who was the second?
Chad, okay.
Chad.
That's what happens when everybody kind of
gonna
like
say.
rushes the motion.
Yeah.
Okay. All
All
right.
right. Can we have a roll call vote for that?
Sure. Chad Johnson,
Yes.
Mark Cole,
Yes.
Steve Smith,
Yes.
oh, Tom Sayes,
Yes.
Lieutenant Quinn,
I didn't hear you.
Lieutenant Quinn,
Yes.
Bill Sanborn,
Yes.
Brian Newman,
Yes.
Joe Cahill,
Yes.
Bill Harvey,
Yes.
and Joanne Sinos, yes. Motion to adjourn passes. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very
Everyone,
much.
Thank you.
Good
See
meeting.
you guys.